they greet him?
No.
Did they touch him?
No.
Did they hug him?
No.
All right, still with us to help break all this down, Kirk Nurmi and Mark O'Mara. Let me ask you both, bad parenting or a crime? What is your opinion, Kirk?
Well, you know, that is a great question because it's a great distinction, and it's a distinction that the state's going to have to make when they prosecute this case, because a lot of the members of the jury are probably going to be parents. So it can't just be bad parenting or debatable parenting or questionable parenting. It's going to have to be bad, horrible in all capital letters. They're going to have strong signs that were ignored by the parents, strong signs that they just deflected, just ignored, did not care about, and repeated ones. Not only that, but in face of these ignored signs, they gave their son, who was not old enough to own a weapon, a Christmas present capable of doing what exactly he wound up doing. So it's going to have to show some really extreme indifference to these signs, some really bad parenting in order to get over that hurdle to gain the conviction they're seeking in this case, because it is so unique.
All right, Mark, give us your opinion, if you would, on whether it's bad parenting or rises to the level of a crime.
Yeah, we know it's bad parenting. That's the easy question to answer. And then along the spectrum, does it go from bad parenting to negligent parenting? Absolutely. But is it that gross negligence that we know has to be shown for a jury to hold them criminally responsible? And I got to tell you, and agree with Kirk, you know, when you know what you know and you're told what you're told and then you don't do anything, maybe that's horrible parenting. But when you then go out and buy him the very weapon that he uses, then yes, I do think the culpability in a jury's eyes, if and when they get there, is going to be on the parents for having allowed and therefore maybe caused the actions of the son. And we'll see how that presents itself in a trial.
And really sad in terms of parenting, and you're right, bad parenting sometimes when you read parts of what happened at this preliminary hearing, and part of it was that he said he needed to go to the doctor and get medication, and his dad basically said, you know, toughen up, you'll be fine, gave him some drugs that said you're going to be okay, and you just need to be tougher. And so it's hard to hear that when you know it's a cry for help looking back in retrospect. Let's talk about the legal standard, though, because some viewers say, what does this mean? There was a preliminary hearing, now we're going to trial. Preliminary hearing, and I'm going to start with you, if I could please, Mark, the standard of proof and the difference between a preliminary hearing when a judge says it goes to trial versus a criminal trial beyond a reasonable doubt.
Sure, it's sort of like a, not even a preponderance, but like a probable cause standard. The evidence is presented by the state to say there's enough here for them to have to stand trial. Much different and much lower standard than the beyond a reasonable doubt they're all comfortable with and aware of in a criminal context. What this really says to the judge is, here's our best case. There's enough here that they should be held accountable in front of a jury. And it seems as though, obviously, that's where we're going with the evidence that was presented so far by the state.
And Kirk, what is the significance in your mind, or not, of the fact that this is the first time in history for a school shooting that we are seeing parents charged with the actual deaths caused in that school shooting that was done by their child?
Yeah, I think the significance really is one broad significance. It really doesn't affect the trial at hand, if that makes sense, because this could be a precedent-setting case allowing and motivating other prosecutors to bring similar cases. But when we talk about the trial at hand, when we talk about the trial of Crumbley, that's probably not going to mean anything, because the real focus of the prosecutors are going to have to advance forward is what I said earlier, that horrible parenting, gross negligent, to go beyond the standard that Mark was just talking about of probable cause, but to find proof beyond a reasonable doubt that these parents were so negligent in ignoring the signs and putting the weapon in destruction in their son's hand that they should be convicted. That's really going to play in that courtroom, but it will certainly reverberate outside the courtroom to other areas in cases like this moving forward.
And I know we're almost out of time with you all, but Mark, I must ask you this. Do you think these parents would have been charged if the gun part was not an issue? If they had not purchased a gun for their son, Ethan, would they have been charged, in your opinion?
I think that was a tipping point. I think when it got to the point of the very vehicle through which all these crimes were occurring, and it was because mom and dad did it, that yes, that's sort of the how dare you? But I must say one more thing, Ashley, that you mentioned. I do see that this might be a bit of a shift or a change in the way the criminal justice system is looking. Because if we do go back over the last couple of years, we are holding cops much more responsible. The Kim Potter trial, many other trials, the George Floyd case. We are now holding cops responsible more than we ever did before. And now I think this is telling parents we're going to start holding them responsible for the actions of their children when it ends up with this type of a tragedy.
All right. Thank you both so much for your expertise. I always enjoy having you, Kirk Nurmi and Mark O'Mara. And Mark, I know you're going to be on with Michael Ayala later this evening because we have to step aside for a break. Thank you both. But the programming note that I just referenced, a new Court TV special on the cases that are Black history in the making, airs tonight. Court TV anchor Michael Ayala will have an all-star panel with him, including attorneys Benjamin Crump and Mark O'Mara, the man who did defend George Zimmerman. Michael will talk to our panel about the cases changing the course of history as we live it. You can watch it tonight at 7 p.m., 6 Central, right here on Court TV Live. You don't want to miss it.